10, 15 seconds. I need to get the charger for this. I only got like 30%.
Okay, actually,
Do it.
wait, and don't worry that we're actually already live. It's okay. All right. All right. Well, hello, and welcome to What's Your Everest. This is a show that was created by Dr. Karla Steingraber. She is a sports psychologist and a mental game coach, and actually an accomplished athlete in her own right. And I'm your co-host, Deanna Shass. So, good morning, Karla. How are you?
Good morning. I'm fine, despite all the technological challenges we've had this morning.
Right. I don't know if other people are in the Chicagoland area, but like 55,000 people were out of internet this morning. But that's the thing about what a great parallel about like mental game coaching. You have to stay in the zone and positive that things will work. So, and we talk a lot about
It
that.
was our positivity that got the internet
Right.
back
That's what
up,
it was.
right?
We did it. That's hilarious. So, well, thank you to everyone who's joining live for What's Your Everest today. Remember, if you're watching live, we invite you to say hello. We don't know who's here unless you say hi, and to ask questions in the comments. So, What's Your Everest features interviews with amateur and professional athletes, coaches, but as well as high achieving individuals about the mental game and mental health side of competitive sports and competition. So, we talk to people about what drives them, what interests them in broadening their horizons, and how they conquer that next frontier. So, the big thing that we often talk about, right, Karla, is how do people conquer challenges that get in the way of what their goals are?
Mhm.
Yeah. So we're taking that sort of a parallel really to real life and challenges. And our guests today are Davia and Gregory Sams. Davia is the founder of Lifeaholic Costa Rica. So she said that she was actually feeling like PTSD living as a person of color in the US. So she just picked up and moved with her young children to Costa Rica to build a new life. And now she's opened a consultancy to help other like-minded souls to join her. And her community now is over 100 people. So continuing to grow. We're joined by her husband, Gregory Sams, who's a Miami based entrepreneur and lawyer in his own private firm. And he specializes in personal injury, criminal defense, and police misconduct. So,
Mhm.
welcome, please, to Davia and Gregory Sams. Woo, woo.
Hello,
All
hello,
righty.
hello,
There you go. I'm
hello.
putting you guys in
Good
the
morning.
spotlight. So again, thanks to everyone joining in live. Please say hello so we know who's here, and also ask questions as we go. Um, well, I think it's really important, Davia. I know Karla and I have had a chance to talk to you and are just we're huge fans.
Yay!
Yeah. So I thought it made sense to actually open with your story of living in the US. I know the term I first heard with you was as a melanated person. What drove you to leave the country that you were raised in?
Um, well, like I was saying, and like how you introduced this topic, um, I I came from a just a normal family. I don't have like all the stories of, oh, my dad left me when I was a baby, and I don't have any of those stories. I had a pretty decent childhood, normal family life. All of my family are high achieving in the education field or world, but what I did feel like is like I didn't belong there. And the reason why I say that is because I worked in the same industry basically my whole career. And in that corporate space, I was the only person that looked like me. Like, well, let's just say this. So if it was 1,000 people in the room, there was like one of me. If it was 2,000 people in the room, it was like two of me. And I always felt like I had to like be really small and
Mhm.
explain my, like, I always felt like I needed to justify my existence. And and even when I did justify my existence, I also felt like I was never fully accepted. I was always like last to be promoted, last to know. And it just felt like I didn't belong in that place. And I knew it was because I was a woman, number one. Number two, I was black, or I like to call myself melanated because it's not just black people that experience this. It's typically people that have melanin in their skin, right? So I just felt like all of those little microaggressions that I was like a part of started to wear on me. And I felt like I was going to have some kind of breakdown, or I was going to go postal on somebody, just do something crazy out of character because of stress.
Mhm. So I know when Karla, when you first heard Davia's story, you really felt like there was a strong parallel to what's going on in professional sports now. Can you talk about just what was that framing for you that struck you, Karla?
Well, there are a lot of things. I mean, even just this morning, I came across an article that was talking about the psychological impact of discrimination. And Davia, you just said something about being promoted last, and I was thinking about the pain that we all feel when we're picked last to be on some kind of a sports team and in our elementary school gym class or whatever it might be. And this is then, for some of us or many of us, we get to just say, oh, well, that was gym class at school, as opposed to this is every situation except for at home, your whole life long. And that long-term impact, and certainly in the realm of sports, depending on which sport it is, it might be dominated by melanated people, but who are the owners?
Right.
Who are the coaches? And who's making all the rules? And you've seen different examples of how people get treated differently. I watched that documentary, Malice at the Palace, and how the athletes were faced with all kinds of legal battles, but some of the fans who initiated the problems that were happening, and the owner, the commissioner, right, who determined who got in trouble or who didn't get in trouble, was white. And then you've got this power dynamic. And how does that impact you on a daily basis when you've got to make the game-winning shot?
Yes.
How does that impact your mental game?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Well, in the case for both of you, it's interesting because Davia, and that's what we really want to talk about, is if you don't like, that's the name of the show. If you don't like the playing field, change the game. And I noticed, Greg, for you, like you graduated from law school and just went straight into your own practice, like never anything else. So creating your own thing. Davia, you literally left the US and created your own thing. So yeah, there you go. So Greg, I don't know if you want to maybe chime in here first. I'm curious about this idea of how do you decide, oh God, I'm like, I could wear like my rose colored glasses all day. I'm like, we'll put on a show, we can make it work. How do you ultimately decide, like, it's not me, it's them? Greg, it seems like, how did that happen for you? Because you opened, like I said, you went straight from being an honor law student to going into private practice.
Well, actually, I did some time with the government before I went into private practice. I worked 3 years at the public defender's office and then went to private practice. So I had the government side as well as the private side. But I noticed, when you first start practicing law, you have these great ideas. I'm going to change the world, blah, blah, blah. And that's what I wanted to do. I went into it because I had experienced one of the riots in Miami, because we had a number of them back in the 80s or so. And I decided at that time that I wanted to make a difference, that I wanted to do something to stop this from happening again. Mm-hmm. This police action that always causes riots, and it caused, Watts, through the history of the country. And since I had lived to 2 or 3 of them, I remember when I wrote my essay to the University of Miami Law School, I said, this is what I want to do. I want to make a difference. And so I started doing that after my criminal practice to try to make a change in the police misconduct realm. But all of this combined with what I've observed as a criminal lawyer, the inequities of the system, how people of color are being crushed basically by the system where others are not for the same thing, how minimum mandatory time is given disproportionately to people of color, but not everyone else. And I've even pointed this out in court. I've argued this to the judges. This is not right, these minimum mandatories. And I remember one judge famously telling me, well, Greg, that's just how it is. That's just how it is. Mm-hmm. And so as I go through my life, I don't want to accept that that's how it is. And I believe in other countries, it's not like that. And so that started my travels to other countries to find happiness, because I realized that the matrix of America, that I am to make a lot of money and buy a BMW, and that would give me happiness, was crap. That maybe if I keep working until I'm 65 or 70, maybe I can enjoy my life then. I'm like, this
Sure.
is insane. So the combination of the hamster wheel of America, the criminal justice system, which I'm seeing firsthand crush people, the inequities on every level that I'm trying to deal with, and I'm not making any significant change, led me to believe that I had to find another life, a life where I should be happy. And I decided that we really should be trying to be happy in life, not listen to what America says we should be doing, which is to kill ourselves to get another car. That we really should, happiness should be the goal. And for me, happiness can't be had in the US. Not for me. It's not going to happen.
So, and it sounds like then also a combination of being a person of color in the US, but also then just the US kind of what we're all supposed to want. And of course, what Deanna says, see, this is really, I like this comment because Brianna says, what Deanna says is important. Thank you, Brianna, to remember. But what she says is it's not always you. Sometimes it really is them. So now I do want to talk about, we won't leave totally the what's going on in the US. And I realized too, when you said something about how it was totally stacked against people, I was like, oh, that's so awful. That is such a white response to be like, oh my God, that's horrible. I can't believe it. And I apologize for that because it's always like, oh my God, I just heard. That's
no,
terrible.
It just means you have a heart, Deanna. It just means you have a heart because that reaction, like even because you're so far removed from that experience, that is your normal reaction. But at least you had that reaction. That's a good place to be. Like,
well, and to validate
enough to have it. Like, oh my God, the horrors.
Yeah, but also to validate that you're speaking truth, because you know sometimes, how many times does someone say, "Oh, I experienced this," and so, "Oh, you're just imagining it." No, it's actually like validating. What did she say?
That doesn't happen anymore. Like that was back in the day. And that's even worse to me. So I would rather somebody be in shock of what I say as opposed to, oh, Davia, you're overreacting. Someone at my job said, oh, that's because she's a little bit on the militant side. I was like, oh, okay, yeah. That hurts worse. That hurts worse. It's because you're so far removed from this that you can't even see that there are so many people hurting because of something that's systematic, built into a system that's designed to make sure that you don't accomplish your goals, that you don't go to college, that you don't have a good career, that you don't have a good job, that you don't get a good interest rate on your loan. Everything is designed and stacked up against you. And so when you know that, and then you try to convey that or explain that to someone else, and they're like, oh, that there's no way possible that can happen. That hurts worse.
So that actually makes me think of two questions. I'll probably go to Karla first, but one is going back to what Brianna said. So now that you have the chance to start from scratch and build it on your own, you know, what does that look like? And then actually for Karla, what I'm wondering, just when you work with people, you know, how do you sort of suss out like what is, because even with the, you know, the mental game coaching, sometimes you think, oh, it's in your head. Like, how do you differentiate between helping someone really understand what's really happening to them? Do you know what I mean? Like the fact that we're validating that this is actually, you're absolutely right that you're experiencing this. So,
well, it is such a difficult thing because two things are happening. It is in your head. It's not that it isn't there. Whatever pain we're ever talking about, it's always really there. It's really felt. It's authentic. It's not made up. But then there's the piece about getting other people to acknowledge that they're not living in your shoes. They're not walking in your shoes. They don't know what it's like to be you. And just being able to get people to stop and listen for a second. We don't do a whole lot of listening in this world. There's a lot of talking. Dale Carnegie got us all talking and you know, remembering people's names and being extroverted. But there's so much listening that has to happen to really understand where somebody's coming from.
Right.
So now tossing it back to Davia and Gregory. So now you've seen what you don't want. You have, this is what's so amazing. So you're like, we're just going to create our own. So how are you conscientiously then, you know, what does it mean to conscientiously build a new community with a whole new paradigm?
You want to take that, baby?
No, you start.
Well, I think one of the great things that we've experienced since we left is that we have a community now. And it's based on a few things. One, give me an example.
Mhm.
We can send out word on WhatsApp that we're going to have a party tomorrow, 1 day's notice. Everybody will be there. Everybody will bring a dish. We'll have a great time. 1 day's notice. Can you do that in the US? Can you say to your friends, come by tomorrow on a Wednesday, come by on Thursday for my party? No one will be there. Everyone will go, I can't. Traffic. Oh my God, I got to pick up the kids. I got to do this. I got to do that. It'll never
For
happen.
sure.
This is our life. It happens all the time. I never know what day it is. I have to ask David, is it
That's
Tuesday?
true. I never knows what day it is.
Tuesday and a
What
Sunday
is
is the same to me. It's exactly.
Sounds like there are too many parties.
It's a lot.
Actually, here's some
There's
pictures of
never
some of
enough
that. Looks
parties.
like a great life.
There's never enough parties. Oh wow! Look at
Yeah,
that.
I mean,
Yes, that's real life right there. Woo!
and I think you
That's
can't
amazing.
do that in the U.S. because of all the stressors and everything else, and your need to make so much money to pay for all the things that you have. You can't do that kind of thing.
Mhm.
But when that becomes normal, and you let some of the material things go, and you go for the simpler life, and you're in a place where everyone's happy, and whether they're poor or not, everyone's pura vida, and everybody says pura vida, pura vida. And I mean, hello means pura vida, goodbye is pura vida. It's just so calming. And
Yeah.
so when you're in that kind of environment and you're not worried about the police at all, they're
Mhm.
I can give you our first
They're friends.
police
They're
story.
friends.
We were at our favorite place watching the sunset, reggae's playing. The police come up with their flashlights saying, "Who owns this Jetta?" We go, "We do."
Dun,
And so
dun, dun,
follow
dun.
us. So as we're following him, she being from LA, I'm being from Miami, I'm like this. I'm like, oh no, I'm not gonna have it. She's ready, we're ready to throw down. And the police officer says, we just wanted to talk to you because you left your windows down and there's been a little theft in the area. So just want to make sure your car is safe. I almost cried and hugged the guy.
I did cry.
I've never had that kind of response from a
I
police
did
officer.
cry.
No police
Mhm.
officer cares if my window's down in the States and was worried about whether somebody's going to steal my stuff. But over there they do. Because there's no incentive to arrest people like it is over in America where they have to make stats and you're judged by how many people you arrest and all of that. They don't have that there. So they're not
Mhm.
trying to arrest people. We drove around for a year with one headlight. You can't do that in Miami. I'd have been pulled over 20 times, probably arrested, charged with trumped up stuff. You can't do that here. When I'm here, when I'm in the States, if I go to the States, I got to make sure all my license is ready, the tag is ready, the lights are working. If my tail light is out, I immediately go to my best friend, the mechanic, and say, can you fix the tail light? Because I don't want to get stopped. Because who knows what happens after you get stopped? Because in America, for people of color, when you get stopped, you may not survive that encounter. You can be arrested and charged with trumped up charges. So when you take all of that out and you're in a place where everyone's the same, everyone else is calm too, it just makes a beautiful life.
So this is interesting. Thank you for this question. So should melanated folks continue to attend the very systems, institutions that help continue these cycles of inequality, like higher education, where most of the student athletes are of color? So what do you think about that, Davia? I mean, because you actually kind of...
I would love to answer that question.
Okay.
I say yes. I say the only way that you know that...
I think she stuck a little bit.
Yeah.
Totally disposed. All right, Greg, did you want to take that one?
Well, yeah, I mean, we do need to continue to support those institutions because everybody can't leave the U.S., right? And we always have to shoot for the good because the U.S. is based on these beautiful flowery language in our Constitution. It's one of the greatest documents ever written. The idea is, can we actually live up to what's in there? Can we actually pursue those goals? And in order to pursue those goals, yes, our institutions need to change. And we do need to insist for change and protest for change and continue to make change. So the answer is yes, that you never give up the fight for the good. So that's how I respond to that.
Another question, and hopefully Davia will get back on. So you may know this as well, Gregory, but what advice do you have for people who can't leave due to their responsibilities, dependents that might require hands-on attention here? Now, what's interesting, I'm curious, Gregory, from your perspective, but Karla that's got to be, I'm sure that's a question that you get when someone's like, I just can't do it. Like, how would you even talk to someone who says, well, here's all the reasons why I can't do it? How would you work with someone just even as a mental game coach with those kinds of questions? Because again, people do have real responsibilities. How would you help them?
Well, certainly, I think the biggest thing is how can you protect the young minds you're dealing with? That question made me think about, because the person was speaking about dependence, your children. Like, what do you do about your children to make sure they're going to be okay here? And if you're talking about a society that has racism happening on a daily basis, and your children are going to be facing that, how do you protect their minds from that experience? And you can't totally, but what you can do is give them context. And you can say, this isn't you, this is the system. And, when you're older or when the situation changes, we're going to look for ways to maneuver out of this. However, while we're in the system, you need to know what's you and what's them. Otherwise, you start to kind of feel like you're going crazy. And I think Davia had said that too, that when you can't differentiate anymore, especially if you've been born and raised here, you take on the flavor of the stew, and it's hard to differentiate what's you and what's them, so to say, or what's all of us, because you see how women treat women in the workplace, and I've read about how minorities and the police force treat minority suspects that they apprehend, and it just becomes the way people are treated. It doesn't matter who's doing it.
Sure. I wonder, it's going, Richard, thank you for that question. I'm going beyond that, but all of a sudden I'm realizing, in the US, they talk about parents, let's say parents who are African-American, about the talk, about having to have the talk about interacting with police. And also I'm wondering, because a lot of people in your community, it's not just individuals that are going, you have whole families that are coming to be part of this raising children, which sounds actually amazing. What is it like for these parents to raise children, like where they don't have to actually explain how racism works? Is that the experience of it? And how does that feel for people?
Well, I know for us, we don't have to have that talk where we live now. They're 11 years old, turning 12, 2 girls. And that's not even something we have to consider or worry about. And I think going back to the previous questions about the fear of how can I leave if I have dependents, people depending on me. I think what you should do is research the countries that have the support that you need. For example, where we are, the healthcare is great. And they have public healthcare. And so you can buy in for an affordable price, which you can't do in the States, for your whole family. And we can insure our whole family for $200. And that includes everything. Absolutely. I don't care if you get cancer, down to your stub your toe. So when you look at it in that way, you don't have to have the same kind of fear. And I think people have fear about, what am I going to do with the kids? They do have schools in these other countries. They have wonderful schools. They have private schools and public schools. And you can also homeschool, as we're homeschooling our kids now from the state of Florida. We're using the state of Florida's educational system, but we're teaching them in Costa Rica. So you have that option as well. So I don't want people to be scared of leaving. And I think the best way to do it is whoever in the family is the support one, the one that makes decisions, that person should go first. Send one family member first to scout, just to scout, and let the scout come back and say, hey, it's good. Or that's the way you approach that. I think people have a lot of fear of the unknown, but they have to realize that, when people, my friends say, be safe. And I say back to them, are you joking right now? You be safe. Because I'm safe over there. If you look at any statistics, and I came from Miami, that's my home city, the crime rate is pretty high there, right? As it is in LA, New York, Boston, Philly, all those are the top 10. So if you live in those cities and you're asking me if I'm safe, that's because you never left to check out anything else. You can't really judge other places if you've never been. You can't judge other countries from sitting in America, which has told you that we're the greatest country in the world, and that's your only paradigm. And you've never even stepped out to see if that's actually true, right? So are we the greatest country in the world? Do we have the greatest healthcare in the world? Absolutely not.
I was going to say your $200 gets me like 2 days of health insurance. So.
Basically.
But it's so true that Americans, we are taught that this is the greatest country, and people don't really feel like they have to challenge that belief by looking elsewhere, or how other countries do it, or how they take care of people. Even like, I think there are 153 people in prison in Iceland, in all of Iceland. Now, I know it's a small country. It's a small country, but percentage-wise, it's insignificant compared to how many people are imprisoned in the U.S. And what's that about? And we have guns and they don't. And, you know, there are all kinds of things to consider. What is so great here? We've got a big military.
But you also have to realize that prison is a business in the States.
It is
prison
a business.
It's a business. It's a high revenue generating business. It's a capital. So the more people in prison, the more money the country makes, the business makes. So that's it in a nutshell. If the prison was not a money-making opportunity, there wouldn't be so many people in prison. It's basically modern-day slavery, in my opinion, because the people who are in there are the same people that worked for free that built the whole country up. They're melanated people. They're low-income people. They're the poorest. They are the, you know what I mean? So anytime you have a business that involves poor people making money, of course, Iceland's only going to have 153 people in prison because it's not a money-making opportunity.
Right. So, Davia, just as we're kind of, actually, it's amazing. We could probably talk for like 3 days and clearly barely scratch the surface. But part of what you do now, Davia, and Greg, with the experience you've had, is you're now helping others who might want to make this transfer as well. So what would you say to others who are thinking, besides everything we just outlined, I'm ready. Can I want to move there?
Come on
over.
I'm like, I'm in. Talking about crime. We're in Chicago. Oh my gosh. But so what advice do you have for people? How do you help other people who might want to move there?
Can I say 2 things, Deanna?
Please.
A lot of people, I'm going to go to your question, but when you said, how do you help people? I just want to preface this with, we work with everyone. We work with the people that want to work with us. So I want to say that, like, even though it's geared toward melanated individuals, because I feel like we are the group that's underrepresented in the world, basically, in terms of travel, people, all the commercials, all the marketing and advertising, it's not geared toward people that look like us. It's geared toward people that look like you, right? So my mission was to make this business, this relocation service, a business that's focused on the underrepresented in the travel industry and the relocation industry. So I do want to say that. So when some of my non-melanated clients that I do work with say something like, well, what about me? I'm like, I love you the same. I only say melanated just to highlight the fact that those are the people that I want to work with. But honestly, I want to live around people that want to live around me without question. So that's number 1. But number 2, the service is designed to help people who couldn't even fathom the thought of packing up their entire life, and moving to another country. The goal is to kind of pave the way, do all of the hard work for these clients so that when they arrive, all they have to do is show up and have a good life. I don't want them to have to do all the hard work that I had to do over the last 6 years to pave this way or to make this space available for people that look like me. Because a lot of people that look like me, honestly, are afraid to travel alone because of there's so much racism in the world, and they don't know where they can go that they'll be accepted. So I'm just letting them know there is a place in the world. We are building a beautiful community with people who look like you, with people who love you just because it's Tuesday and for no other reason.
So we've got one other question from audience, and I know Karla's got a question. She always asks everyone when they're on the show. And Karla, you may even have an idea of this as well, but reconciling the idea that your country may not be as great as you were taught and not to allow that to negatively impact your mental game. So Yeah, it's there's all the
That's
reasons.
deep.
Actually, it's deep. Not only that, I mean, that has to do with life right now because it's really hard. They're like the recession, the world recession's coming. There's the pandemic. There's all this, and to get all that like out to be able to just do what you need to do each day is a challenge. And well, mental health challenges are increasing. So, Karla, I'd love to hear everyone's thought on that, like how you actually personally do it. Karla, how do you advise people professionally to get the stuff out of your head to be able to stay in the game?
One step at a time, right? One pebble, one boulder to traverse. And you have to do a little bit of compartmentalization insofar that you have a very particular job ahead of you right now today, or this moment, or this game, or this test, or this job, whatever it might be. And you do have to focus on that. And once you've completed what's right in front of you, you can move on to the next thing. So there's relevance in being in the zone and being able to tune out the noise. Doesn't mean the noise isn't relevant, but you just have to know when is the right time to be able to tune into the noise and when to tune it out.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think you have to have a really good filter, and I think Davia helps me out with that a lot because of my job. I feel I have to stay somewhat connected because I still practice in Miami, and there are occasions where I have to fly back and go to court, and then I leave as quickly as possible. So I have to have some connection to the States. But I've learned that I have to keep it to a minimum because what happens is there's so much negativity flying around in the States because that's how money is made. So the news is not going to focus on, there was a great honor student that had a 4.0 and got a scholarship to Harvard from a minority community or a poor community. They're going to focus on all the shootings that took place. We're going to hear about the insurrection, the, so-and-so hates so-and-so, and this, and dysfunction. It's just, and dysfunction makes money for the media and the news, but it's not good for our mental health at all. It really isn't. So we don't really have to be in that to that extent every day. So basically once a week or so, when I'm out, after I surfed for the day and did my little work, I'll look at Rachel Maddow, just get my highlights, and that's it. Just allow her one show and then run away, because I don't look at local news at all because that's all bad, right? You won't even feel safe in your home if you look at the local news. You're scared to walk out the door because there's so much violence and shooting. And they used to have a show here in Miami. They used to have a show called Crime Check, where they would just follow the police and chase. When the police are chasing, they'd be right after him. They'd arrest the guy and they put the camera in his face. Why'd you steal that? Why'd you steal that? And you just look, it's insane. It's almost like a parody of life that this is happening, like the Truman Show or something. But it's real. They're really doing this. And that affects you. You can't go through this life getting all of that and think you're not affected by it. And I had to realize that I have some level of PTSD, right? And they, some of the courses they give the lawyers, they tell us, especially those of us who are criminal, when you're looking at graphic pictures and who choked who and who took a machete to who, you can't be the same after that if that's what your life is. So yes, you need a filter. You need to calm yourself. You need to stay off of the news as much as possible and just get what you need to get through the day and still be able to come home and have good talks with your wife and kids. That's my advice.
Well, you're so right. What you consume then consumes you. So if you're consuming all this garbage, it does preoccupy you. And it is really important. We just consume way too much TV in general. And to get away from that or Facebook or whatever other social media stuff that starts to make us all feel rotten about ourselves, we do have to focus more on educating ourselves, growing as human beings, growing together, learning the things that are going to make us feel like we're making progress in our work, progress in our lives, that we're getting better.
Yeah. But can I say something really fast on the flip side of what Greg just said? Just imagine you're consuming beautiful things. You're consuming the ocean. You're consuming fresh air. You're consuming excellent organic food that you're growing yourself. You're consuming love. You're consuming community. You're consuming raising your children, sitting right next to you all day. You're watching them grow. You're grateful. They're safe. So just on the flip side of all of that, just imagine how you can heal yourself from PTSD by consuming the opposite of what made you sick in the first place.
And it sounds like that's
Well,
what
and
you did by creating Lifeaholic Costa Rica.
Absolutely.
So, sure.
Yeah, and that's why I was so inspired by your work. Is just you changed the game, and it's amazing. You really found something that is just so much better, so much healthier, and really offering opportunities for people that have a pathway that you can be successful at this too. You don't have to reinvent the whole wheel.
Yes.
Yeah.
And along those lines, Karla, what's the question you always ask everyone at the end of the show?
Yeah, for both of you, what's your Everest? What's next for you? What's the next big challenge that you're ready to climb?
Ooh.
Go ahead, honey.
Well, it's so funny because we just talked about this yesterday, where I was saying I think for next for us, for me, is we are working on trying to automate all of these services and to make them evergreen. And so I want to start traveling and talking to people one-on-one in groups and seminars so that I can get a wider audience at one time. So that's what's next. We're going to start just spreading the word, and not even, it's about Costa Rica. It's about this particular area. But what it's really about is that no matter who you are, if you can get your mind in a place and try your best to push that fear down so that you can accomplish something big, you can do it. So if America's for you, North America's for you, go for it. You know, good luck. Hope it all works out for you. But if you do decide that you want to explore the world, don't be afraid to do it. If you're melanated, there are places in the world that love you just because you're a human, because of humanity. They love you. So that's next. We're going to start getting out onto a wider, bigger platform in different countries and just trying to recreate this same model for Costa Rica, but for every country that a person may want to go to.
Oh, fantastic. Greg, would you add anything to that, your Everest?
Yeah.
Well, I basically support her and her Everest at this point. But there's another business that we have going called Que Pasa Puerto, which is a new directory that's coming out, and we have an app that's going to be launched soon. So I'm really focused on that. And
Que Pasa Puerto?
Que Pasa Puerto.
Que Pasa Puerto.
Yes, it's going to be the directory for Puerto Viejo and the surrounding towns for all the restaurants, hotels, events.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. Well, what's the best way? Because we are winding down. We're going to go ahead and get going, but we're getting questions like if you're not ready, how to engage. Have you considered a book and a TV show? So you've got lots of supporters here. What's the best way for Daniel and Jay Alford for people to follow up with you and to get in touch with you? Is it through your social media, or what do you suggest?
I would suggest go to www.lifeaholicostarica.com. And there's the link to consultations, there's links to relocation services, there's link to videos, photos, articles, like whatever you need to know about the work that we're doing in Costa Rica, you could find it there.
Perfect. And then they can get in touch with both of you there.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Just really thank you to
you.
everyone who joined live and all the conversation, and really just thank you for this wonderful conversation, and congratulations to all that you're doing. It's so liberating to know that it's like, no, you can actually make, like, you can actually create something from nothing and really make the life that you want to live. So
we sure can.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you. We hope we'll talk to you again and have you back another time. Thanks.
Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, guys.
Part 2.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Part 2.